Buck Wilson stood motionless in the pre-dawn Montana air, his weathered hands wrapped around his grandfather's restored Winchester Model 70. 40 years of hunting these mountains had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every fiber of his being screamed that something was wrong. The elk tracks he'd been following had suddenly scattered, not the usual organized movement of a spooked herd, but pure panic. Buck had seen prey animals react to every predator these mountains could throw at them, but this was different. The ground around him told a story he couldn't quite read, and that bothered him more than anything else. "Getting soft in your old age," he muttered, adjusting his blaze-orange vest. At 58, he'd spent more time in these woods than most people spent in their living rooms. 3 generations of Wilsons had run guided hunts through these mountains, and he'd be damned if he was going to let his clients down because of some funny feeling. The radio at his hip crackled. "Buck, you copy? Over." The voice belonged to Terry Mitchell, one of his 2 clients for this expedition. "Go ahead, Terry. We've got something weird over by the North Ridge. Some kind of lights, like really bright ones. Dave went to check it out about 10 minutes ago, hasn't come back yet." Buck felt his stomach tighten. "Stay put. Mark your location. I'm heading your way." He moved through the forest with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd learned to hunt before he could drive. The morning mist clung to the pines, but something about it seemed off. It was moving against the wind in places, swirling in impossible patterns. When he reached Terry's position, the investment banker from Chicago was white as a sheet. "I told him not to go," Terry stammered, pointing toward a clearing ahead. "But Dave, he said he saw something move." Buck's trail camera was tied to a tree overlooking that clearing. He pulled out his phone, connecting to its live feed. The screen showed nothing but static, which was impossible. He'd just changed the batteries yesterday. "Stay here," Buck ordered, his voice leaving no room for argument. "If I'm not back in 15 minutes, you call the sheriff. Then you call my daughter Annie at the lodge. She'll know what to do." The clearing was wrong. That was the only way Buck could describe it. The grass was flattened in a perfect circle, frost forming despite the summer heat. In the center lay Dave's rifle, a high-end Remington that looked like it had been split clean in half. Buck's hand tightened on his Winchester as he approached the weapon. The cut was smooth, almost surgical, and the metal at the breakpoint was still hot to the touch. That's when he saw the blood. Not red, but a brilliant fluorescent blue that seemed to pulse in the morning light. A twig snapped behind him. Buck spun, his rifle raised, facing empty air. But the air rippled, like heat waves off hot asphalt, but moving with purpose, moving toward him. Without hesitation, Buck fired. The report echoed through the trees, and for a split second, something flickered in the distortion, a tall, crystalline shape that definitely wasn't human. The thing screeched, a sound like metal grinding on metal, and the air filled with that strange blue blood. It splattered across Buck's boots, instantly freezing into delicate patterns despite the warm morning. The ripple in the air retreated, leaving strange 3-toed footprints in its wake. Buck tracked it through his scope until it disappeared into the tree line, his heart pounding but his hand steady. Only then did he key his radio. "Terry, get back to the truck. Now." He paused, watching as the frozen alien blood began to sublimate, turning directly from solid to gas. "And call Annie. Tell her to pull out my old journal, the one about the lights her granddaddy saw back in 47. In the distance, something metallic hummed, and the morning mist began to glow. Buck Wilson chambered another round. Whatever was hunting in his mountains was about to learn an important lesson. On Earth, humans weren't the prey. They were the apex predators. Jake Thompson hadn't seen tracking this difficult since his days hunting insurgents in Fallujah. The former Marine Scout sniper crouched beside the mutilated elk carcass, his experienced eyes taking in details others might miss. The precision of the cuts wasn't natural. They were too clean, too methodical, like someone was studying anatomy rather than hunting for food. "Third one this week," Tammy McCready said, coming up beside him. The Fish and Wildlife Officer's usual cheerful demeanor was nowhere to be seen. Same pattern as the others. Internal organs removed with surgical precision, skull split right down the middle. Jake nodded, running his fingers along the frozen edge of one cut. Despite the sweltering Montana summer, ice crystals glinted along the wound. "You said you saw something yesterday." Tammy's hand unconsciously moved to her sidearm. "Wasn't like anything I've ever seen before. Was checking reports of poaching up by Billy's lodge when my truck's electronics went dead. Saw this shimmer in the air. Thought it was heat waves at first, but it moved wrong. Had shape to it. Like active camo," Jake muttered, remembering similar technology he'd encountered in classified operations. But this was different. Advanced. "Billy see anything?" "Why don't you ask him yourself?" Tammy gestured toward the approaching ATV. Billy Red Hawkins looked nothing like a man who owned the most exclusive hunting lodge in 3 states. His red beard was wild. His eyes haunted. The former Army Ranger had served with Jake in Afghanistan, and it took a lot to shake him. "My entire herd's gone," Billy said without preamble, killing the ATV's engine. "Every single deer. Found them all laid out in a grid pattern, like some kind of sick science experiment. But that's not the worst part." He pulled out his phone, showing them a video. "My security cameras caught this last night." The footage was grainy, but clear enough to show 3 crystalline figures moving through Billy's deer paddock. They seemed to phase in and out of visibility, their movements unnaturally smooth. One turned toward the camera, revealing multifaceted eyes that glowed with an inner light. "Jesus," Tammy whispered. "Gets better," Billy said grimly. "Watch what happens when my guard dogs show up." On screen, Billy's 3 German shepherds charged the intruders. One alien raised what looked like a ceremonial staff. A pulse of blue light, and the dogs stopped. Not dead, but frozen in mid-stride, suspended in some kind of stasis field. "They're studying us," Jake realized, his military training kicking in. "Learning our defenses, our predators, our hunting patterns. This isn't random, it's reconnaissance." "For what?" Tammy asked. A distant scream echoed through the trees. Not human, not animal, but something between the two. All 3 of them drew their weapons instinctively. "For that," Billy said, racking the slide on his modified AR-15. "They've been watching us hunt. Now they want to hunt us." The air rippled 20 yards away, and Jake's training took over. Contact front. He barked, muscle memory from countless combat operations taking hold. Triangle formation, backs together. They moved as one, creating overlapping fields of fire. The shimmer circled them, testing, probing. Jake tracked it through his scope, remembering similar dance from his sniper days. Predator and prey, hunter and hunted. Some things were universal. Movement, 2 o'clock. Tammy called out. A branch snapped to their left. Classic flanking maneuver. "They're hurting us," Jake realized, using standard pack hunting tactics. He'd seen wolves do the same thing, splitting up to drive prey where they wanted it. Billy checked his magazine. "So what do we do, Sergeant?" Jake smiled grimly. These aliens might be technologically superior, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They were treating humans like any other prey species, expecting panic, expecting flight. "We show them why humans are the apex predators," he said, pulling a thermal scanner from his pack. "If these things could bend light, they still couldn't mask their heat signature. We stopped playing defense." The air rippled again, closer now. Jake's scanner picked up 3 distinct heat signatures, moving with practiced coordination. These weren't just hunters, they were professionals. Elite. Good. It would make the lesson stick better. And we start hunting them instead. Joe Tracker Martinez hadn't taught hunting skills since his days training Army Rangers in jungle survival, but watching the young hunters before him learn to track invisible aliens made him feel 20 years younger. The Vietnam veteran moved silently through the underbrush, leading a group of local hunters along a trail most wouldn't even recognize. "See how the dew's disturbed," he whispered, pointing to a pattern of moisture on the forest floor. "Their cloaking tech doesn't account for environmental interaction. Nature always tells the truth." Emma Deadeye Patterson knelt beside him, her keen eyes studying the pattern. The former Olympic shooter had traded her competition rifle for a custom .300 Winchester Magnum, modified with a thermal scope. "Like tracking a ghost," she murmured, "but ghosts don't leave footprints in the morning dew." A twig snapped in the distance, too deliberate to be natural. Joe raised his fist, and the hunting party froze. Months of practice had turned them from a ragtag group of locals into a coordinated unit. "Remember," Joe breathed, "they rely on tech. We rely on instinct. Their weakness is their strength. They think they're invisible." Emma's rifle tracked something the others couldn't see. Movement, 30 meters out, using the same patrol pattern as yesterday. Joe smiled. The aliens were predictable, following textbook hunting formations. They hadn't adapted to Earth's terrain, hadn't learned that what worked on other worlds meant nothing in Montana's wilderness. "Cody, time to sing," Joe ordered. Cody Weber, a local ranch hand who'd been calling elk since he could walk, raised his traditional bone collar to his lips. The sound that emerged wasn't the usual elk call. It was something different, something they'd discovered by accident. A frequency that made the aliens' cloaking technology glitch. The air shimmered, and for a split second, they saw it, 9 feet of crystalline terror, its multifaceted eyes scanning the forest. The aliens' cloaking field flickered like a bad TV signal. "Now," Joe commanded. Emma's rifle cracked once, the sound echoing through the trees. The specialized round, developed through weeks of trial and error, struck the aliens' environmental suit right where they'd discovered a weak point. Blue fluid erupted from the impact site, instantly freezing in the summer air. The alien staggered, its cloaking device failing completely. It raised its weapon, only to find its arm encased in rapidly expanding foam. Tyler, their resident hunting shop genius, had modified bear spray canisters with a compound that reacted violently with the alien's body temperature. "They hunt alone," Joe had told them during training. "Individual glory over team efficiency. That's why they'll lose." The trap was perfect. As the alien tried to retreat, it triggered the neural stunners they'd salvaged from previous encounters. The creature collapsed, its crystalline form glinting in the morning light. "First live capture," Emma said, keeping her rifle trained on their prey. "Better call Jake." Joe keyed his radio. "Sidewinder, this is Tracker. Package secured. Bringing home some dinner." Static crackled, then Jake Thompson's voice came through. "Copy that. Tracker. Area secure." Before Joe could answer, 3 more shimmers appeared at the tree line. The aliens had adapted, learned to hunt in packs. Pride surged through Joe's chest. His team didn't even flinch. "Multiple contacts," he reported calmly. "Initiating protocol echo." The hunting party moved like water, flowing into defensive positions they'd drilled countless times. Emma's rifle sang again, forcing the aliens to duck behind trees, exactly where they wanted them. "Just like Charlie in the jungle," Joe muttered. "They think they're hunting us." Cody's call echoed through the trees again, but this time it was joined by others, calls from hidden hunters positioned throughout the forest. The aliens froze, their cloaking fields wavering as the overlapping frequencies disrupted their tech. "Time to educate some ETs," Joe said, signaling his team to advance. The tables had turned. The aliens had come to Earth expecting sport, expecting prey. Instead, they'd found warriors, hunters, survivors. They'd found humans. And humans had been perfecting the art of hunting for 200,000 years. School was in session. The Wyoming Hunters Convention should have been packed with vendors showing off the latest gear and old-timers swapping tales. Instead, the massive convention center had become a fortress, and 16-year-old Bobby Ray Jenkins was about to become a legend. Contact, west entrance. Someone shouted as the glass doors shattered inward. 3 crystalline forms materialized, their exotic weapons humming with deadly energy. Bobby Ray didn't think. He moved. Years of competitive shooting had taught him to act on instinct. As everyone else dove for cover, he rolled behind a display of compound bows, bringing his father's modified OR-10 to his shoulder. The alien's cloaking technology might fool cameras and electronic scopes, but his father had taught him to shoot iron sights since he was 8. "Remember, son," his father's words echoed in his mind. "Technology fails. Skills don't." The first alien went down hard. Bobby Ray shot, finding the weak point in its environmental suit that Jake Thompson's team had identified. Blue blood crystallized in the air as the creature collapsed, its death scream shattering every window in the building. "Kid's got guts." Mason Brooks, the local militia leader, shouted from his position behind an overturned truck. The former Delta Force operator had been coordinating hunting clubs across 3 states, preparing for exactly this scenario. "Keep them contained. Don't let them reach the civilians." The remaining aliens split up, using tactics that would have been brilliant against normal prey. But this wasn't a normal hunt. Bobby Ray tracked the second alien as it leaped over a display of camping gear. "Lead it, just like tracking a running deer. Calculate the movement. Anticipate the dodge." His second shot caught the alien mid-jump. It crashed through a gun dealer's booth, its cloaking field shorting out in a spectacular display of sparks. "They're herding us toward the east exit," Mason called out, just like Tom predicted. Tom Hawkeye Whitehorse, the local hunting guide who'd been studying alien behavior patterns, had called it perfectly. These weren't random attacks, they were coordinated strikes, trying to force the hunters into killing zones. The third alien raised its weapon, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire that turned 3 pickup trucks into molten slag. The convention center filled with smoke and the scent of burning metal. "Body," Mason shouted. "Get to the high ground. We'll keep it busy." The young shooter sprinted for the escalator, taking the steps 3 at a time. Below, Mason's militia team executed a perfect fighting retreat, drawing the aliens' attention with controlled bursts of gunfire. They'd learned that while their bullets couldn't penetrate alien armor directly, they could force the creatures to maintain their energy shields, draining their power cells. From the second floor, Bobby Ray had a perfect view of the battlefield. The alien was good, damned good. It used cover effectively, its movements precise and calculated. But there was one thing it hadn't counted on. Bobby Ray had grown up hunting prairie dogs with his grandfather. Tiny targets, moving fast, requiring split-second timing and perfect shot placement. He'd won the state shooting championship 3 years running. This was just a bigger prairie dog. The alien rolled behind a concrete pillar, its cloaking field flickering as it prepared for another attack. Bobby Ray's breath slowed, his world narrowing to his front sight post. Wait for it. Wait for it. The alien broke cover, charging toward Mason's position. Bobby Ray exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect, catching the alien's power cell just as its shield cycled. The resulting explosion sent crystalline shards flying across the convention center floor. Silence fell. "Holy shit," Mason breathed, emerging from cover. "Kid, that was." A slow clap started somewhere in the back of the room. Then another. Soon, the entire convention center was cheering as Bobby Ray made his way down the escalator, his rifle still smoking. But the celebration was short-lived. Outside, multiple sonic booms shook the building. "That's what I was afraid of," Mason said grimly, checking his tablet. "We've got reports coming in from across the state. They're done testing us." He looked at Bobby Ray with newfound respect. "How are you at teaching, son? Because we're going to need every shooter we can get." Bobby Ray chambered another round. Class was in session. High Commander Zixtal of the Zaxthian elite hunting fleet stared at the primitive entertainment feed in disbelief. On the screen, 3 generations of humans, The Cooper family moved through their ritual called deer season. Impossible, he chittered, his crystalline form vibrating with agitation. Play it again. The footage showed old Jim Cooper, 78 cycles by human count, teaching his 12-year-old granddaughter Sarah how to track a wounded deer through dense underbrush. The child's father, Mike Cooper, followed behind, recording everything for their YouTube channel. See how the blood drops angle. Jim's weathered voice explained. Tells us the deer's height, speed, and how bad it's hurt. We don't want it suffering. Clean kill or no kill at all. Fascinating, isn't it? CIA analyst Mike "Moose" Anderson said from across the interrogation table. The captured Zaxthian hunter beside him shifted uncomfortably in his restraints. You thought we were prey species. Turns out we've been teaching our children to hunt since before we had written language. Sixtol's multiple eyes focused on the captured hunter. Explain. They are different, High Commander. The hunter's crystalline voice wavered. They do not hunt like the Vrex or the Ktin. They hunt for joy, for bonding, for, he struggled with the concept, fun. Another video played, a hunting safety course in Texas, hundreds of humans learning proper weapon handling, shot placement, and wildlife conservation. You're not watching primitive apes learning to use tools, Moose explained, loading his grandfather's old Winchester. You're watching the result of 200,000 years of evolutionary refinement. We don't just hunt. We study hunting, perfect it, teach it to our young. Not for survival anymore, but because it's part of who we are. Zixtel's color shifted to deep purple, the Zaxthian equivalent of shock. But your weapons, they're so primitive. Moose laughed. That bow and arrow you dismissed. We used it to hunt mammoths to extinction. Those primitive rifles, they're deliberately chosen for challenge and sport. Hell, some of us hunt with spears just to keep it interesting. The screen showed more footage. Bow hunters taking elk at impossible distances, teenagers competing in shooting tournaments, hunters tracking wolves in Alaska, conservationists managing wildlife populations. Your kind hunts for trophies. Moose continued, his voice hardening. We hunt to connect, with nature, with our past, with each other. Every human hunter you've killed had a family, a community, a legacy of skills passed down through generations. The captured hunter's crystalline form trembled. High Commander, they have hunting seasons not because they're weak, but to prevent prey extinction. They're so effective they have to limit themselves. New footage played. Bobby Ray Jenkins taking down 3 cloaked hunters at the convention center. Old Joe Martinez leading his team in capturing alien technology. Emma Patterson making impossible shots with iron sights. You wanted to turn Earth into your private hunting preserve. Moose stood, his frame casting a shadow over the alien commander. Congratulations, you found one. But you got the roles backward. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Zaxthian command ship. On multiple screens, human hunters appeared, using techniques perfected over millennia to track and trap alien patrols. How? Zixtal demanded. How are they defeating our best technology? Because technology isn't everything, Moose said, as more alarms joined the chorus. A rifle is just a tool. A true hunter's real weapons are patience, skill, and knowledge passed down through generations. The captured hunter spoke again, his voice filled with newfound respect. High Commander, they don't hunt like us because they're not like us. They're not just hunters, they're teachers of hunting. Every human hunter creates more hunters. Moose nodded toward the screens, where Bobby Ray was now teaching other teenagers how to spot alien camouflage patterns. Welcome to Earth, Commander. For your sake, I hope you're a fast learner. Zixtal watched as, across the planet, humans young and old demonstrated why they had remained apex predators for thousands of generations. School was definitely in session. Hannah Storm Blackwood moved through the Rocky Mountain forest like a ghost, her movements perfected by 20 years of guiding hunts in the harshest terrain North America could offer. Behind her, A dozen of Montana's finest hunters followed in perfect silence, their footsteps matching the natural rhythm of the wilderness. 3 clicks ahead, she whispered into her radio, her breath barely visible in the pre-dawn chill. Billy's crew has them boxed in from the north. Copy that. Storm, came the response from Tyler Montgomery, whose family's hunting supply stores had become command centers across 3 states. South Ridge is locked down. These ETs ain't slipping away this time. The alien hunting party had made a critical mistake. They'd chosen to set up their base in what they thought was an isolated valley. What their advanced scanning technology failed to understand was that this particular valley had been used by human hunters since before the first European settlers arrived. Hannah knew every rock, every tree, every hidden cave. This was her office, her church, her home. Movement, crackled Cody Sterling's voice over the radio. The former rodeo champion had adapted cavalry tactics for their guerrilla campaign, using horses to patrol the high country where alien vehicles couldn't follow. They're moving their heavy weapons into the tree line. Hannah smiled grimly. The aliens were following standard military doctrine, setting up overlapping fields of fire, securing the high ground. Perfect by the book tactics. Too bad they were reading the wrong book. Execute Phase 1, she ordered. Across the valley, dozens of game calls began to sound. Not the usual elk or deer calls, but the modified versions they'd developed to disrupt alien sensory equipment. The effect was immediate. Shimmers of displaced air showed where cloaked aliens stumbled, their sophisticated hunting gear overwhelmed by what they dismissed as primitive noisemakers. They're so focused on technology, Hannah had told her team during planning, that they've forgotten the basics. Sound travels differently in mountain air. Echoes play tricks. These valleys can turn a single call into 1,000 voices. The aliens responded predictably, sending out scout teams to locate the sources of the calls. That's when Phase 2 began. Horses thundered from hidden draws, Cody's riders emerging from the morning mist like avenging cavalry. They weren't firing. They didn't need to. The horses' thundering hooves triggered the seismic sensors the aliens relied on, creating a cascade of false readings that sent their targeting systems into chaos. Just like running buffalo, Cody whooped over the radio. Except these critters shoot back. An alien patrol emerged from their cloaking field, raising weapons. Before they could fire, precision shots rang out from multiple directions. The Montgomery brothers had positioned their best shooters in natural hides throughout the valley, places hunters had used for generations. Grand had always said, Tyler's voice carried a smile, if you want to ambush something, find where your ancestors did their ambushing. Some spots are just natural kill zones. The alien response was devastating, and exactly what Hannah had counted on. Energy weapons lit up the dawn, their power signatures clearly visible to the thermal cameras they'd mounted on circling eagles. Eagles that Billy Red Hawkins had trained specially for this mission. They're burning through power cells, Hannah observed, just like we planned. Call in the close team. That was when the true hunters emerged. While the aliens focused on the obvious threats, silent figures slipped through their perimeter. Hunters wearing ghillie suits that generations of snipers had perfected, moving with the patience born from countless hours in deer blinds and turkey hides. The alien commander never saw the net that entangled his position. Carbon fiber mesh, treated with the same compound they discovered disrupted alien tech. His guards didn't even have time to raise their weapons before precision shots disabled their power cells. Valley secured, Hannah reported, approaching the captured commander. Turns out your fancy tech doesn't work so well against skills we've been perfecting for 30,000 years. The alien's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been fear or respect. Welcome to Earth's hunting grounds, Hannah said, her voice carrying the weight of countless generations of predators. Class is in session. Tyler Whiskey Davidson pressed his back against the ancient pine tree, his grandfather's deer call held close to his chest. Around him, the Montana wilderness had gone deadly quiet, the kind of silence that seasoned hunters knew meant apex predators were near. "You getting this, Leroy?" he whispered into his radio. From his workshop 20 miles away, Leroy Jenkins, the gunsmith who'd cracked the code on alien armor, studied the readings from Tyler's modified game camera. "Crystal clear, brother. Them saw running a standard sweep pattern, just like you predicted." Tyler smiled. After 3 months of studying alien hunting behavior, they'd discovered something remarkable. For all their advanced technology, the Zaxthians were predictable. They followed programmed hunting algorithms, relying on their superior technology rather than instinct and experience. "Carter team, you in position?" Tyler asked. "Roger that," Sarah Carter responded. The third-generation bow hunter and her family had proven that sometimes the oldest weapons were the most effective. Alien sensors were calibrated to detect power signatures and metal concentrations. They weren't looking for carbon fiber arrows or compound bows. "Remember," Tyler breathed, raising the deer call to his lips, "these aliens hunt like machines. But we hunt like humans." He blew into the call, but what emerged wasn't any sound nature had ever intended. The modified call broadcast on frequencies they'd discovered by accident, harmonics that played havoc with alien targeting systems. The effect was immediate. 3 shimmers in the air stuttered and jumped as cloaking fields went haywire. The aliens' crystalline forms became visible for split seconds, their movements jerky and disoriented. "Now, Sarah," arrows whispered through the morning air. The Carter family had adapted their bow hunting skills perfectly, using arrows tipped with a compound Leroy had developed. The material didn't need to penetrate alien armor, it just had to make contact. 2 aliens went down hard as the compound reacted with their environmental suits, creating a cascading failure in their tech. The third managed to raise its weapon, only to find its targeting system scrambled by Tyler's continuous call. "They never learned to shoot without computer assistance," Leroy commented, pride evident in his voice. "Imagine depending on tech so much you forget how to aim with your own eyes." The last alien abandoned its useless energy weapon, drawing what appeared to be a ceremonial blade. It charged Tyler's position with incredible speed. But Tyler had grown up hunting mountain lions. He'd learned from childhood that when technology fails, instinct and skill prevail. He dropped the call, drew his father's restored Remington 700, and fired in one fluid motion. The round, hand-loaded by Leroy, with a specific powder mix they'd found disrupted alien shield harmonics, struck true. The alien crashed to the ground mere feet from Tyler's position. "Target down," he reported calmly. "Leroy, you getting readings?" "Better than that," the gunsmith replied. "Their armor's broadcasting on all frequencies. Looks like we finally cracked their neural network. Patching you through to command." Colonel Sam Grizzly Crawford's voice filled Tyler's earpiece. "Davidson, you beautiful bastard. The intel we're pulling from that armor is golden. Their entire command structure runs on shared hunting protocols, standardized programs for every situation." Tyler approached the fallen alien, noting how its crystalline form was already beginning to cloud over. "They turned hunting into a science," he said. "Forgot it was supposed to be an art." "Their mistake," Sarah added, emerging from her hide with her compound bow still at ready. "They thought better technology made better hunters. When really," Leroy chimed in, "the best technology is useless without the skills to back it up." The alien stirred, its multifaceted eyes focusing on Tyler. In accented but clear English, it spoke. How did you defeat our superior methods?" Tyler knelt beside the dying creature, respect rather than malice in his voice. "Because hunting isn't about methods. It's about understanding, patience, adaptation." He gestured to Sarah and her traditional bow, to his grandfather's rifle, to the ancient woods around them. "We didn't just learn to hunt. We learned from hunting." The alien's eyes dimmed as understanding finally came too late. Class was in session, and the final lesson had been taught. Colonel Sam Grizzly Crawford stood in the heart of Yellowstone National Park, his weathered hands resting on a handcrafted wooden podium. Before him sat the strangest delegation in Earth's history, 12 crystalline Zaxthian representatives, their multifaceted eyes reflecting the morning sun. Behind him stood Earth's own delegation, Buck Wilson, whose first encounter had started it all, Bobby Ray Jenkins, the teenage marksman who'd become a legend, Hannah Blackwood, who'd turned the Rockies into an alien graveyard, and dozens of other hunters who'd helped teach the galaxy's greatest predators a lesson in humility. "Your technology is impressive," Crawford began, his voice carrying decades of authority. "Your weapons, extraordinary. Your hunting protocols, extensive." He paused, letting his words sink in. And none of it meant a damn thing against human ingenuity and 30,000 years of hunting tradition. The Zaxthian High Commander's crystalline form shifted colors, a sign of acknowledgement they'd learned to recognize. "We miscalculated," the alien admitted, its translator carrying genuine regret. "We saw your primitive weapons, your limited technology, your reliance on organic methods. We failed to understand these were choices, not limitations." "Dan right," Buck Wilson muttered, drawing knowing smiles from the human delegation. Crawford nodded toward where Bobby Ray was teaching a young Zaxthian the basics of tracking. The alien youth was learning to read signs in the dirt without relying on sensors, a sight that would have been unthinkable months ago. "Your people hunt for trophies," Crawford continued. "We hunt to understand, to connect, to teach." He gestured to the vast wilderness around them. "This park isn't just a hunting ground, it's a classroom, a temple, a reminder of who we are and where we came from." The High Commander rose, its crystalline form catching the light. "We have reviewed the data from our encounters. Your species has a unique relationship with hunting. You restrict yourselves, limit your seasons, protect your prey species. Yet when threatened, the alien's color shifted to deep blue, respect. When threatened, Hannah Blackwood stepped forward. "We remember that humans didn't become Earth's apex predators through technology alone. We did it through cooperation, adaptation, and passing knowledge through generations." As if to emphasize her point, the sound of Buck Wilson teaching another group of young Zaxthians to use bird calls drifted across the meadow. The aliens had requested these lessons, eager to understand how primitive sound tools had defeated their advanced sensors. "The Galactic Council has revised Earth's classification," the High Commander announced. "You are no longer considered a developing species with potential hunting grounds." Its color shifted again, ceremonial purple. "Earth is now recognized as the origin point of the galaxy's premier hunting culture. All species must study here before receiving hunting rights in any system." Crawford allowed himself a small smile. "And the instructors will be human," the commander confirmed. "Our young will learn from yours. Technology and tradition merged through understanding." Bobby Ray's voice carried across the meadow as he demonstrated proper rifle stance to his alien student. "Remember, it's not about the weapon. It's about respect. Respect for the hunt, for the prey, for the land itself." The Zaxthian youth mimicked the stance perfectly, its crystalline form vibrating with excitement as it finally understood hunting as more than just programmed protocols. "We came to Earth thinking we would find prey," the High Commander admitted. "Instead, we found teachers." Crawford extended his hand, a gesture the aliens had learned to appreciate. "Welcome to Earth's hunting grounds, Commander. The first class of galactic hunters starts today." As human instructors began leading their alien students into the wilderness, Buck Wilson smiled at the sight of his granddaughter showing a young Zaxthian how to move silently through undergrowth. "You know what this means?" he asked no one in particular. Hannah grinned, shouldering her rifle. "Yeah. The whole galaxy is about to learn why humans have been the apex predators of Earth for 200,000 years. And why," Crawford added, watching the future unfold before him, "we'll be the galaxy's hunting instructors for the next 200,000. Class was in session, and this time, the whole universe was enrolled.